We could absolutely see the Federal Reserve return to QE at least temporarily. We have seen something like this before during the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in 2023, when the Federal Reserve was participating in quantitative tightening and reducing their balance sheet, but temporarily they had to bail the system out and increase their balance sheet. We could absolutely see something like this happen again. If the Treasury selling becomes too disorderly, yields spike too high, and liquidity dries up and banks are on the verge of failure because if they can't borrow overnight, then they literally fail, then we could absolutely see the Fed step in and say, inflation doesn't matter, jobs don't matter, tariffs don't matter, we're responding to an emergency, and we're gonna buy up a bunch of US Treasuries from the market in order to stabilize things. In that case, what you would see is TLT shoot higher, you would see yields like the 10-year drop again. Everybody would rush to the entrance in order to buy those things up, knowing now that the risk is gone. But there's a second play that most people are not considering right now, and that is simply bank deregulation. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the causes of things like this was the regulations that were passed in order to make banks safer. This prevents them from investing in things that are considered riskier, but it also encourages, or at least incentivizes, taking on excess risk on things that are supposed to be risk-free, like treasuries. And so with some simple deregulation that is targeted specifically for treasuries, banks could literally do QE for the Fed. Right now, banks are limited in how many treasuries they can buy. They can hit their risk limits by buying treasuries, but with a few tweaks, that rule could simply be done away with, and banks could do that QE for the Fed, buy up a bunch of treasuries and stabilize that market. That would again have the effect of pushing yields back down and sending the share price of bonds and funds that hold those bonds back up higher. And given the sheer power and force behind bond markets and that they typically move other markets like stocks, that would also be a good sign that the bottom is in for something like SPY. And some well-timed calls there would probably perform extremely well.